MonWHO has recently hacked emails from the chief of logistics at CIPLA. It reveals that he has been orchestrating the sale of expired drugs to Latin American countries including Haiti, Peru, Colombia, Nicaragua, and Honduras at discount prices. Furthermore, it is clear that lower-level officials responsible for procurement were being bribed to purchase drugs which they knew to be expired. Expired Trimune is known to have dangerous side effects and has been sold with a flagrant disregard to the human cost this will impose on the already vulnerable population of HIV patients. Just another public service announcement from your friendly neighborhood MonWHO.
Charlotte Harris for BBC News. Today's events demonstrate a continued scandal between China, MSF, and Merck. New developments from MSF have accused China of providing doctor-patient confidential information to Merck to allow them to provide personalized targeting towards patients for specific drugs.
Well, I mean, we were just briefly mentioning that you may have played a role in influencing Merck & Co. But we thought you might have an influence on them with the recent scandal that was going on.
I have received insight from someone, and this is what you said. You said, blah, 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 the Chinese Ministry of Health has done all these things in association with Merck and Frost to give these clinical trials, and you completely support it. And then you go on to say that in the event that any of these practices go astray or any of these are not actually warranted or good, then just blame the United States of America just because. Who else did you say you would blame in here? The United States, the foreign media, or MSF?
I don't see a signature on there, and I don't see any sign that that's from the government of China. So
I believe that those are your initials at the very beginning. This is clearly your letter.
China and Merck have denied these accusations. MSF has provided no hard evidence, but says that statistically, the number of patients coming to them desiring Merck's products is extremely unlikely.
Note that he gave to me threatening us of a third world war.
A Canadian delegate has gone on record saying that they believe Merck and the U.S. are both innocent of such corruption and that China is to blame.
Merck has been involved in quite a few of these little scuffles now with involved in the United States and with China. And China seems to be trying to distance itself from the blame, so they seem to be putting blame on other countries.
Do you believe that all corruption blame is solely on China then?
Yes. Maybe.
Maybe.
Hi, I'm Julian Zandberg, and I'm from Ready Global, and I'm here with an unnamed delegate to talk about the lack of progress in the working paper of the North America's bloc. What is your biggest concern about what's going on with the working papers as of currently?
Well, my biggest concern with respect to what's going on in the Americas group is that it seems as though only a few delegates of the total are working on the paper, so it seems as though the interests of those countries are going to be most prominently shown on the paper.
So do you feel that any countries in specific are more corrupt than others?
Brazil, Venezuela, and Chile, as well as Guatemala. Guatemala is being very controlling in the Americas group.
Representative from Italy.
Hello?
He's currently working on a program called MonWHO, which is going to prevent from corrupt projects from taking place in the first place.
Italy believes that working with NGOs on the ground in the nations where these projects will be taking place is an incredibly important step. Because NGOs are already there in place, they're already actively monitoring corruption, they would be there to help us see what's going on and to raise alarms and raise flags that will tell us that a project is being corrupted, and so that the governments and partners involved in the project will be able to intervene as it's going on. The way these MonWHO work is that we would rank projects, of course, based off of indexes of corruptibility. But the indexes of corruptibility would take into account the relative development of these countries. So we would say, okay, so this country has a long history of corruption, for example, but here are the recommendations that, if put in place, we know would make these projects more sustainable. If they choose to enter into these analyses, they will be showing the world that they are ready to take on new projects. They are ready to fight corruption. So that will be raising their profile and also the profile of the project, because their project will be listed. People will know about it. There'll be interest generated because the project will be listed in the MonWHO database, and it'll be, like I said, a step to fight corruption. So people will know that these countries are ready to start fighting, and people will look to these countries as future partners because they'll be making the statement, we're here, we're ready to fight corruption, and we want to know how to do it.
This is Katarina with CNN, and I'm interviewing a delegate from Germany. Are you a supporter of a program MonWHO?
Yes. We that having an organization within the WHO will help stop corruption in all developing countries, but also in developed countries, because corruption is rampant. We would definitely have measures to punish, and we would definitely have measures to regulate, first of all, and to have punishment for those who impinge on our regulations and our legislation.
Merck was bribed, be it MSF or the Chinese government, to conduct these trials in China. The FDA required that these rules and regulations be abided by, and Merck clearly did not accommodate those rules.
So you're denying any involvement of the FDA in
I am
this?
denying all the involvement of the FDA. I would like to retract my earlier statement regarding corrupt Merck employees. Essentially, they are corrupt. However, I was wrong. The FDA does have a member on the review committee who was bribed by Merck and Frost, and we are not okay with this. The United States government was not aware of this. The majority of the FDA was not aware of this. However, disciplinary action will be taking place to ensure this doesn't happen.
This is Katerina with CNN. GSK has sold anti-malarial drugs that were at their first trial phase to Uganda. They're now selling them to China. We learned this from Pfizer.
As a Pfizer representative, we are very, very keen on transparency, and so it is disappointing to our company to have to reveal that GSK is planning on carrying out clinical trials in China, taking over from Merck's trials.
Uganda just admitted that they were bribed by GSK in order to receive very dangerous anti-malarial drugs. But GSK has not issued a statement saying that they were at fault. Do you have any opinions about this issue?
However, whatever did happen, or if GSK did bribe them, or if they didn't, and if someone else, I believe that we are here to try to move on from this type of corruption, which is happening a lot in our country. And that
Given the current state of GSK and their anti-malarial drugs in Uganda, Merck has opted to support Uganda by providing anti-malarials instead of GSK.
The Republic of Uganda is very, very pleased and happy that Merck and Company is willing to work with us towards reducing corruption.
And we would like to address the allegations that Oxfam has been supporting corrupt practices in Uganda, and we are also withdrawing our support from GSK.
Transparency International, who have agreed to withdraw support from GSK until they can clean up their actions.
Uganda. However, Merck said that it is acceptable in certain situations to issue phase 1 trial drugs. So they are in fact going to be doing the same thing. And the phase 1 trial drugs are very dangerous, and they have caused sickness in 15% of the population in Uganda who have taken these drugs.
This is Nathan Gamble, Editor-in-Chief of The Economist. A nation can easily speak against corruption. Almost every country does so. Very few lead by example. The United States prides itself on being the leader of the free world. It forgets this is primarily due to military prowess and issuing the global currency.
Oh my God, there it is. There it is. It's made clear that you were bribing the Chinese government.
I did not.
Or you were bribing.
I was bribed by the Chinese government.
That's corruption at its highest degree.
Yeah, not on my part. It's on the part of the Chinese government.
You are accepting the bribe. There's two kinds.
No.
What is it? A dialect?
I've drawn my people
No, it's
out.
let me just tell you exactly. If I could find it, it's a dialect or whatever form of corruption. There's the giver and the one who the receiver, and you are the receiver.
The corruptee and the corrupter. I'm aware of that.
So
However, I've drawn my
did
people
you just
out.
acknowledge that you're the corrupted?
No, I'm acknowledging an ideal that occurs in many situations around the world. I'm not acknowledging
This
it's
is
occurring.
specific to you.
But as the fraud is still a current problem in the U.S., is the U.S. in a position to address other nations and assert that its policies are better than theirs, considering the current frauds the U.S. is dealing with?
We are the most powerful nation in the world. Our policies are better than developing nations and other nations worldwide. So in the event they need help from us, we do have a solidified plan in the form of Obamacare. So if other nations would like to follow in our footsteps or follow our lead, that's fantastic. We are more than happy to provide that insight.
Do you think it's a fair accusation to expect the same out of the developing world country and to insist upon that you're such a leader in the field?
I think so.
Nations must acknowledge the flaws in their systems and discuss how they are addressing them. before proposing suggestions to other countries. The U.S. needs to remember, pride comes before a fall.
Do you not think it's a problem that a lot of the pharmaceutical companies have been themselves accused of corruption?
Nobody is as corrupt as GSK right now, and other pharmaceutical companies I know I can trust a lot more. Furthermore,
How do you know this?
Because they are at least working with Transparency International amongst other NGOs and have come out denouncing corruption. However, GSK has not. Earnestly need their support in helping us to form a new regulatory commission.
We absolutely should not have pharma funding our regulatory advisory committee on anti-corruption, because pharmaceutical companies have their own interests at heart. We should trust rather the other countries, such as the EU, to help us, collaborate as sovereign nations and promote anti-corruption clauses without having private interests.
I have here with me Rebecca from Burundi. Now, you just came out of a caucus where we discussed the possibility of having pharma companies fund your drugs. What are your thoughts?
Well, Burundi is very against pharma companies funding our anti-corruption advisory committee, as we believe that if one pharmaceutical company is very corrupt, such as GSK, then many of them will be corrupt as well.
Denmark feels that funding is an option for the future, but we can't confirm that until we see how their plans go.
What's your definition of going well?
Going well would be if there's no corruption, and by no corruption I mean that...
I have here with me a representative from MonWHO, which is a pharmaceutical company. Now, recently Uganda discussed the fact that they believe that GSK is the only corrupt pharma company, and that for this reason they are only willing to work with other pharma companies. Do you think that GSK is corrupt, and do you think that their corruption could happen to you?
As a pharmaceutical representative, it's not my role to pass judgment on another company. However, I believe that corrupt practice is possible in any company. They should perhaps adapt standards to that of Merck.
What are you
to
doing?
avoid this, Merck has very strict standards which we abide by if GSK is found to be corrupt.
I'm here with GlaxoSmithKline representative, and GlaxoSmithKline. So some countries are saying that you're the only corrupt pharma company, and this is why they don't want to partner with you when it comes to funding their drug initiatives. What do you say to this?
I deny all allegations that GSK is corrupt. There's no proof. We didn't pay bribes in Uganda. We're denying that happened at all. We are open to making partnerships in other countries. We're really excited with what we have going on in China and would like to hear proposals.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is Isabel Kim with South African Broadcasting Company.
The main discussion in the European regional bloc was regarding the pharmaceutical supply chain. There was a question and answer session where Turkey, Luxembourg, and Belgium answered to some tough questions about their working paper. A lot of the answers depended on the responses of the big pharmaceutical companies and what their interests were. This reporter saw Merck, GSK, and Pfizer working closely together to make sure their interests are included in the clauses being voted on by the delegates. The drug companies are seeking partnerships with governments to supply their brand name drugs, but many countries, including Saudi Arabia, believe that education on drugs is the most important factor and that generic drugs should not be pushed aside for these brand names. Many delegates will likely vote how the pharmaceutical companies advise them to, in order to earn the seal of approval. However, wealthy countries such as Qatar and Saudi Arabia have the resources and knowledge to produce their own generic drugs for lower prices.
Good afternoon. I'm Louise Chong here with Al Jazeera, and I'm here with Gloria Cho from Pfizer. It seems as though the big three pharma companies have been making an alliance and really trying to push their interests onto the working papers. What are you looking for the delegates to include?
Personally, as a representative from Pfizer, we are really looking for delegates to act upon a principle of honesty and ethics. We really want to push the topic of transparency.
The company is not against generic drugs being used in these less developed countries who can maybe not afford the brand name drugs.
We're absolutely not against accessibility or generic drugs. What we do ask is that guidance is provided to those who are in charge of making these products, and this is something that Pfizer is absolutely willing to be able to do.